Tata taking another crack at the hotly contested hatchback segment. And after the lukewarm response to the Bolt, the Zica has a lot riding on it. But unlike the Bolt, that was basically a revamped Vista, the Zica is practically all new, whether we talk about the fresh looks, the cabin, or those two all-new engines. Well, let's get down to it and see if the Zica has got what it takes. The Zica is a nice-looking car, and I say nice because it's not edgy and sharp, but more a pleasing design that would last over time. The front has cuts, character lines, creases and curves that all draw you to the T logo in the center. This sits atop a grille of hexagonal cutouts in glossy black plastic. The side profile of the car looks neatly proportioned, and it carries two distinct shadow lines, one at the bottom of the doors that curls up towards the rear edges and one at the waistline that slants downward towards the front, giving it a bit of sportiness. The Zica sits on 175/65 tyres, and unlike other cars where the large gaps in the wheel wells make tyres look puny, these fill them out well. With 170mm of ground clearance, the Zica is higher than its competitors. But it doesn't look quite like that. It sits quite squat to the ground. That feeling is partially due to the rear, where the bezel tail lamps stretch out around the sides, giving it a wider gate. The rear spoiler on the top has glossy black edges, adding some style. Dimension-wise, the Zica outdoes its competitors, promising a lot of space on the inside. Overall, it's a modern-looking hatch that's definitely pleasing to the eye. Well, the interior of the Tata Zica is definitely impressive. I think it's one of the best we've seen in a Tata car so far. It just keeps getting better with every model. Lots of nice touches over here, like the highlight of the exterior color around the air vent, the honeycomb textured plastic on the dash, the knitted roofline, or this well-damped button for the glove box instead of the crude handles that we're used to seeing on cars of this class. All the buttons and knobs and switches have this well-damped tactile feel as well. The center console interesting and has, of course, the info display. Apparently, it's a practical car too because it has 22 storage spaces. Well, there aren't 22 different locations, but if you count the spaces like the two bottle holders in the front doors and the flat pocket, it all adds up. If there's one thing to complain about, it is that the backrest of the front seat seems a little overplumped and takes a few adjustments to get settled in. But with height adjust for the driver's seat and the steering, it's easy to settle in. And of course, it comes loaded with tech too. There is a Connect Next infotainment system developed by Harman, which comes with an 8-speaker audio system. And apart from the regular aux-in and USB, the infotainment system comes with the turn-by-turn app, which allows you to use Map My India maps via your phone, and the Duke app, which uses the mobile hotspot on your phone to create a virtual network in the car to host a service for sharing songs on the device. You can connect up to 10 devices which can share the playlist. There's also the multi-info display in the center of the instrument panel. On the safety side, you get driver and front passenger airbags, ABS with EBD, but it remains to be seen whether this will be offered across all variants. The boot is a large 242 litres and it's quite deep, so getting in a full-size suitcase is also possible. Now, let's get to the opposite end of the car, where there are two new engines. We begin with the petrol, a 3-cylinder 1.2-litre 84 bhp engine with 11.6 kgm of torque. Now, the figures aren't too bad on paper, but the Zica is a heavy car. The petrol weighs in at 1012 kg, and you can feel that weight out on the road. In the petrol engine, initial power delivery is good, but then as you get deeper, you find that the mid-range is really flat. In fact, the power delivery itself is very linear, and that's until you get right up at the top end. Just as you're getting to the red line, it feels like it gets its last wind and suddenly pulls a little better again. There's a lot of weight for the engine to lug around, and under load on a slope, that lack of power is accentuated. The car judders trying to get a move on after you slow down, even after dropping gears. The clutch, though light and easy, also doesn't really release progressively, making it a little jerky in traffic conditions. If you are pottering around in city traffic, you will find this engine adequate for your daily grind. But get onto an open stretch or try and get an urgent move on, and you will find progress feels labored. On the refinement front, you do hear the thrum of a 3-cylinder, but it's comparable to any other in its class. Now, where the Zica does shine through is in the way the ride and handling is delivered. Steering feels quite accurate around the corners. And in fact, even in a straight line at higher speeds, it feels well weighted, and the car itself feels quite planted and secure for a small car. It doesn't feel tinny or light, and that heavy weight now becomes a little bit advantageous. It feels like a larger car when you drive it. The tires grip well, and even as you go around corners, the Zica displays good body control and is happy to change directions quickly and deftly. Drive it out on a highway and you will notice that it feels planted and you can settle into a cruise with confidence. Whether you're at the wheel or in the back seat, the Zica does offer a bigger car feel. The back seat feels quite nice and open and airy with lots of glass area. And space-wise, it's pretty good too. I've got Nikhil, who's 5'11", sitting in his driving position. I'm about 5'4", and as you can see, I still have good enough legroom over here. The front seat's nice and high, so you can sort of tuck your feet underneath it and get comfortable too. And the bench as well is wide enough for 3. Now, whilst we are talking about comfort, it must be mentioned that the AC is really not as efficient as it should be. The blower makes a lot of noise on the highest speed, but it doesn't really send out that much air. Also, if you're in the driver's seat, it's very difficult to get airflow directed at yourself unless you're tall or sit high up. But let's continue with the other aspects of comfort. Ride quality is actually quite nice for a small car. In the petrol version that I'm in just now, at low speeds, it's rounding off the bumps and potholes quite nicely. And it's quite flat and composed, so even at higher speeds, you find that you don't bob around too much. Well, everybody wants to know how fuel efficient this car is, and we can expect the petrol to give around 23.5 kilometers per litre. And of course, we can expect the diesel to give much more than that. The diesel is a 1.05 litre 69 bhp engine that feels livelier and is the better of the two to drive. Now, I know you may be thinking that this is not as extensive as a review as we normally give you, but here's the big news. The Autocar show is back, and this time with the Times network. So to watch the full version of this review and what we thought about the diesel engine, do catch the show at these times. Well, Tata have put their heart and soul into this Zica, and it definitely shows. Whether we talk about the fresh, exciting looks, whether we talk about the interior cabin and its quality, which is the best we've seen from Tata yet and right up there in the segment, or then the ride-handling compromise, which is an area where the Zica definitely excels. There's a lot else that's going for the Zica too, like space and practicality. It comes loaded with features, especially to attract the younger generation. And of course, there are the two engines, which may not be exciting, but they definitely do the job. Now, at an expected price of sub 4 lakhs, I think this is the car that will deliver on that promise that the earlier Indica gave, more car per car. And I think it is the car to get Tata back in the game.